gave us did.
Wonderful girl! I'm gonna kill her or I'm beginning to like her!
Hello everyone and welcome back to My Nerdy Home. My name is Stephanie. Thank you so much for watching this video. It looks like we have some new information or rumors coming out about the Batman film and regarding Robert Pattinson specifically. So this comes from Bounding Into Comics, and I'm going to go ahead and go through this article and then give my 2 cents on it. As you all know, I do not hide the fact that I am on board with this movie and with this casting as well. And I'm also not shy about saying that if this movie completely bombs and if it completely sucks and if Robert Pattinson completely destroys the character of Bruce Wayne and Batman, that I will be the first one to say something about it. So let's just go through this article. So this article says, rumor, the Batman is in trouble. It could get shut down again. The sequels are in jeopardy. This movie isn't even done filming and the sequels are already in jeopardy. Oh my. Must be quite the rumor. It says the delays and constant woes of Matt Reeves' The Batman may not be over and could be worse than we all thought. We all know the production is in trouble, but sources who leaked information to YouTube personality Victor Von Doomcock claim we don't know the half of the severity. For one thing, the media could be covering for star Robert Pattinson. So it looks like a contact with knowledge reported to Doomcock that the Variety report that Pattinson came down with the coronavirus, leading to a shutdown, was actually inaccurate. And instead, the truth is that the actor failed to get in superhero shape during the time he had off in quarantine prior to the return of this to set. It got out earlier this year that Pattinson was getting by barely doing anything. He defended himself, saying that James Dean wasn't exactly ripped. And Screen Rant published a feature coming to his defense as well, explaining why Pattinson deserves a little slack. When he showed up for work in September, director Reeves took one look at Pattinson's conditioning and lost it. Reeves, outraged his star didn't do shit, stopped production, sent Pattinson home for a few weeks to get tone or in believable shape. And so filming paused on September 3rd when someone believed to be Robert Pattinson tested positive for COVID. But Doomcock's source said that it was all a ruse to cover up the real reason, which was that Robert Pattinson was just too skinny, apparently. On the week of September 21st, they were filming just with the stuntmen who noticeably dwarf Pattinson before their lead would come back for close-ups and dialogue. Now we are in October and the actor did return to the set, but with no palpable change physically, and is described as a stick when dressed as Bruce Wayne. Doomcock also claimed that Pattinson is reported a pain to work with, and that is a problem. He refuses to work out and allegedly complains about how uncomfortable the bat suit is. Reeves is said to be at his wit's end with the Twilight actor and is just going with it. Frustrated especially, people will notice Batman miraculously shrink between shots. The filmmaker just wants to finish the film only so he can be rid of the albatross around his neck, referring to Robert Pattinson apparently. So his desire to move on indicates that the Batman will be a one and done, and any plans for a sequel or a trilogy are getting scrapped. But Doomcock apparently had more intel and it only gets worse. The Batman could be circling another shutdown if the UK moves forward with further anti-COVID measures. Now, this is something that is not a rumor. This is actually credible. Shutdown has not been announced yet, but there are new guidelines that the Batman has to follow. Warner Brothers is allegedly scouting for new places to shoot. The Batman sounds like it's in deep, deep trouble. Be advised though, Doomcock has yet to independently verify the accuracy of the info and urges it to be regarded as rumor. Grains of salt mandatory. I really would take this with a grain of salt. Usually, when an actor is being difficult on set, that actor is known for being difficult on set. There's a history there. So it usually comes as no surprise to hear that a certain actor or actress has been difficult on set. We saw this with Katherine Heigl. Katherine Heigl was allegedly, or no, not even allegedly, she was a bitch to work with on Grey's Anatomy. She was inevitably written off of the show. She spoke badly about almost every single film that she was in, and now she's doing NyQuil commercials. She's not advancing in her career because she is really horrible to work with. Robert Downey Jr. is a good example of this. He is a diva, but he has a leg to stand on. He is the face of the MCU. And not only was he the face of the MCU for the longest time, I mean, he is Iron Man. He is a brand in himself. He has people around him to make sure that nothing bad ever gets leaked out that could ruin his brand. Robert Pattinson hasn't been a brand or hasn't really had anything huge since Twilight. Ever since then, he's just been doing indie films. So it could have been super easy for someone to take anything he did while working on those indie films and reporting it as being diva behavior. But they didn't. Nobody did. Nobody ever reported any type of diva behavior. And that could just be that it's because he's probably not a diva. So if we go back and look at some interviews that he has given, he did do an interview with Esquire magazine, and he was talking about his indie film Maps to the Stars at the time. The movie Maps to the Stars is a satire about the excesses of the Hollywood lifestyle. And Robert Pattinson, while talking in this interview, believes that that's not far from the truth. He's quoted as saying, "It's amazing how quickly people change in this business." There was one guy who had never been on a movie set before, and after just 3 days, he was holding out his water bottle and was waiting for someone to take it. 3 days. Some people just have it in them. So he did call out diva behavior in this interview. I really don't believe this rumor. I don't believe it. And it's not just because I'm pushing for this movie. Yes, I really want this movie to be good. I want Robert Pattinson to be great in this role. But that's not why I don't believe this rumor. The history of Robert Pattinson, his history in Hollywood, just doesn't coincide with this rumor. He did one thing. He said one thing. I don't want to work out. Just that one thing that he said, and all of a sudden, he's a diva. Honestly, why would he even risk that? He's been doing indie films for a long time. And there's a reason he's been doing indie films for a long time. Before landing that role in Twilight, Robert Pattinson, he just wanted to quit acting. He had extremely low self-esteem because he was getting rejected. And his last audition, he was pretty much laughed out of the audition room. So going into the Twilight audition, he had really low self-esteem, but he landed it. He ended up landing the role of Edward Cullen. But that self-doubt and low self-esteem continued while he was filming, because he was almost fired from that role because he takes his acting so seriously that they were saying that he was playing the role of Edward Cullen too serious. He was being overly brooding. He was being overly serious. So since wrapping up all of those Twilight films, he has stepped away from the spotlight and worked on mainly indie films. And that is to working on becoming a better actor. He's quoted as saying that he never went to acting school. So him working on these indie films is just him trying to get better. However, while he loves working on these indie art house projects, there is a problem with only doing indie films. And Robert Pattinson ran into that problem. And he's quoted as saying, "The problem which I was finding was however much I loved the movies I was doing, no one sees them. And so it's kind of this frightening thing because I don't know how viable this is for a career. I don't know how many people there actually are in the industry who are willing to back you without any commercial viability whatsoever." So with him being an actor, but not being in any mainstream films and only doing indie films, it doesn't make for a viable career as an actor, a career that he wants to continue for years to come. So he does have concerns about job security as an actor. And that's what drove him to do Tenet, which is directed by Christopher Nolan. He directs really great actors, and he obviously saw something in Robert Pattinson. Christopher Nolan is quoted as saying that Rob seemed to be in exactly the right place in his career to want to come along and invent with me. And he was cast in Tenet. Not only was he cast in Tenet, but he actually risked his job on Tenet to audition for the Batman. So he tried sneaking off the set of Tenet. He didn't want to tell Christopher Nolan that he was auditioning for the Batman reboot. He's quoted as saying that it's funny because Chris is so secretive about everything to do with his movies. And then I had to be really secretive about Batman stuff. So I had to lie to Chris about having to go for a screen test. I said I had a family emergency. And as soon soon as I said it's a family emergency, he said, you're doing the Batman audition, aren't you? In a career where you need someone to back you need commercial viability, or else you end up just doing NyQuil commercials like Katherine Heigl if you're reported as being a diva on set and you actually are a diva on set. And Robert Pattinson is concerned about job security as an actor. Why on earth would he risk all of that on the set of Batman, a movie that he's excited about? Other than Tenet, his first really huge role since Twilight. He hasn't been in anything this huge since Twilight. People are going to be talking about this, and he knows that. And why would he risk diva behavior? Why would he risk stories like that? Why would he risk his career like that? I really do not believe these diva behavior rumors. I don't. The only thing that I could find coming from the sets saying that Robert Pattinson was difficult to work with came from the Cosmopolis director, David Cronenberg. And this was back in 2011. And it wasn't the fact that he was being a diva. It was just the fact that at this time in his career, he was just too famous. David Cronenberg is quoted as saying that actually his fame was a detriment. It's good for financing, but it's not necessarily good when you're on the street and there are a lot of tryhards around. But I think people will be really surprised. I mean, I think he's a terrific actor, and that's why I went after him. That's the only thing that I could find in his history of being covered in the media. He was being covered like crazy. He had paparazzi chasing him, covering him like crazy. And there's nothing in his career past that says that he was ever a diva. I don't believe that rumor. And I think that it is, in fact, just that. I think that it is a rumor. The only thing from this article that I really think are legitimate are the new COVID restrictions that are being put in place by the government, and that Warner Brothers could be scouting for new locations. That's really the only thing that I think could be true. All right, that's it. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching. Please come and say hi on Instagram and Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and feel free to share it around if you like. Also, I hope you'll consider subscribing and let me know in those comments down